December 1944. Western Europe lies under snow and cloud as the Second World War enters its final winter. On the ground, Allied armies are locked in desperate fighting in the Ardennes. Hitler's last major offences have thrown everything into uncertainty. Supply lines, railways, fuel depots, all have become critical targets. In the air, Bomber Command continues its relentless campaign against the infrastructure that sustains the Nazi war effort. By late 1944, Bomber Command had shifted much of its effort towards transportation targets. Railways were the arteries of Germany's war economy, carrying troops, ammunition, fuel, and reinforcements. During the Ardennes offensive, disrupting these networks became urgent, but winter brought new dangers. Heavy cloud often concealed targets, and ice formed on the wings and in the carburetors of the engines. Crews flew long hours in darkness, guided only by instruments, radio navigation, and the skill of the Pathfinder aircraft, but today they would have to fly in daylight, losing the cover of darkness that keeps them safe. Lancasters remain the backbone of the force, 4-engine heavy bombers capable of carrying devastating payloads deep into enemy territory. On the 23rd of December, they would be asked to do exactly that. The first operation this day targeted railway yards near Trier, near the Luxembourg border. A total of 153 Lancasters from No. 3 Group were dispatched. Trier was a vital junction, feeding supplies toward the Western Front. Destroying it would hamper German movement during a critical phase in the battle on the ground. As the bombers approached, they encountered heavy cloud. Visual bombing was impossible. Crews were forced to rely on instruments and blind bombing techniques. Despite this, reports from returning crew described the bombing as accurate and well concentrated. German post-raid reports later stated that this was the worst raid Trier suffered during the entire war. Remarkably, only one Lancaster was lost from the entire force, an unusually low casualty rate given the weather, distance, and the scale of the attack. It was a textbook example of Bomber Command at its most methodical and effective. But the second raid that day would be very different. The attack on Cologne's Gremberg marshalling yards was entrusted to No. 8 Group, the Pathfinders. Their task was not simply to bomb, but to guide others onto the target with precision. Central to this mission was Oboe, a radio navigation system that allowed remarkable accuracy, but at a price. Oboe required aircraft to fly long, straight, predictable runs towards the target, guided by radio signals from ground stations in England. Against lightly defended targets, this was devastatingly effective. Over Cologne, however, one of the most heavily defended cities in Germany, it is extraordinarily dangerous. Flak batteries ringed the city. Fighter control was sophisticated. Any aircraft flying straight and level became a magnet for fire. On this day, 27 Lancasters and 3 Mosquitos were dispatched, divided into 3 formations, each led by an Oboe-equipped Lancaster, with a Mosquito as reserve leader. Before reaching enemy territory, tragedy struck. During the outward flight, 2 Lancasters of No. 35 Squadron collided over the French coast. Both aircraft were destroyed and took all crew members with them. Before a single bomb had been dropped, 14 men had lost their lives. The remaining force pressed on. As the Pathfinders approached Cologne, the situation changed again. The cloud that had been forecast to cover the target cleared unexpectedly. Suddenly, the bombers were facing clear skies and fully exposed defences. Recognising the danger of prolonged oboe runs under these conditions, the decision was taken to abandon strict formation flying and allow aircraft to break up and bomb visually. But in the confusion of combat, one aircraft did not receive the order. That aircraft was Lancaster 3, PB371, code 60-V, of No. 582 Squadron. At its controls was Squadron Leader Robert Palmer, DFC, on loan for No. 109 Squadron. Palmer was an exceptionally experienced airman. This was his 110th operational sortie. As PB371 continued its oboe approach, it was already taking flak damage. German fighters appeared over the target area, vectored in whilst intercepting American bomber streams nearby. Palmer now found himself alone, flying straight and level, damaged, and under attack. Exactly the situation oboe crews feared most. He could have broken away. He did not. Despite the damage to his aircraft and increasing intensity of enemy fire, Palmer held his course. The Lancaster remained steady on its oboe run. At the correct moment, the bombs were released. They fell squarely onto the Gremberg marshalling yards, fulfilling the Pathfinder's role and allowing the attack to proceed. Moments later, PB-371 was hit again, and the aircraft went down, out of control over Cologne. Of the 7 airmen, only 1 survived, the rear gunner, escaping via parachute, who later became a prisoner of war. Palmer and the rest of his crew were killed. For his courage, leadership, and devotion to duty, for completing his mission in the face of overwhelming odds, Squadron Leader Robert Palmer was awarded the posthumous Victoria Cross. It remains the only Victoria Cross awarded for an Oboe operation during the Second World War. The Cologne raid was costly. In total, 6 aircraft were lost from the 30 dispatched. Other Lancasters were shot down by flak and fighters. 1 crashed in Belgium after its crew bailed out. Some airmen were killed and others became prisoners of war. 1 Lancaster was abandoned, yet its entire crew survived, a rare outcome on such a day. The Pathfinders had done their job, but the price had been high. 7 Lancasters were lost this day. Not all the crew perished. That is still 42 airmen missing in action or prisoners of war or on the run in occupied Europe. Lest we forget.